Ah, yes. Maybe one of the best big horn combo bands in the history of popular music.
And one of their best little deals on the album is called The Ballet for the Girl in Buchanan, the Make Me Smile Suite, and runs about 18 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
This, of course, was the beginning of it, and the single that was a huge hit, Make Me Smile.
And there's the voice of...
There's the voice of Robert Lamb.
Yep. See, they had a real man singing leads in that band before they handed it over to the bass player.
And Peter Cetera.
Sounds like a girl.
Peter was just trying to get chicks with all his tunes.
Hey, thank you
and
for...
it probably worked.
It worked.
The Karate Kid soundtrack.
Anyway,
The glory of love.
we're trying to make everybody smile. I know it's kind of grim out there. We are, in fact, at La Divina because it is our base of operations. But look, dining room is closed like every restaurant. I want to encourage you to order takeout from La Divina. Here's the number, 225-771-8488. And in the very early hours when we were setting things up, we saw one person who did exactly that. But they will go ahead and take your phone call, take your order. They'll have it boxed up, and they'll hand it to you at the counter, which is legal. Or if you want, call them back, and they will bring it out to your car. But the full menu is still available. Or if you want gelato. You know, maybe you're working at home and want a little pick-me-up, get some gelato. Or you just want a couple lattes or whatever. But La Divina is doing the takeout thing, as many restaurants are doing. Call in advance, 225-771-8488. Now, they have some outside tables as well on their patio. So if you want to come in, order, get your coffee, and sit at one of the outside tables, that's legal. That's not inside the enclosed space.
Well, I guess it's legal as long as we have no more than 10 of us in this room.
Well, and the thing is, we're all going to have to go through this. So let's be careful.
I talked to the folks from La Divina this morning, and by the way, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Franz Borghardt joining us.
I plan to, when I depart here and go to my office, I plan to grab some breakfast to go. I talked to the folks this morning, though, and like many restaurants, they're trying to honor not only what they believe to be the spirit of the request, to not defy the order by the governor or by the mayor, but whatever the law is, they're trying to honor that. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's wise, and that's why by the time we come back to you Friday or if sooner if necessary, we're going to gather some of the restaurants' information to see whether they're doing takeout and how they're doing it. Our baby owls are doing the social distancing. Apparently, they listen. Karen just sent me this picture. One of our baby owls has left the nest because there's 4 of them in a very short nest, a very small nest, and is sitting in what looks to be our pear tree.
What kind of owls are those?
They are horned owls.
Great horned owl.
They are great horned owls, and they. I got it. You didn't see the post I took of the baby? Oh, you have to see this. This is. We're calling him Bill. Because he's a male and he did bill snapping, and that's
how appropriate.
We have 2 patios in the back, and the first time I didn't realize he was there, and he was snapping his bill, which is what they do when they're angry and upset. And Dad was up in the big tree looking down to protect him, so he got used to me. So after this, I went over and he let me take his picture.
That's a beautiful picture. That is a really nice picture.
They are about, we figure they're about 6 to 7 weeks old, about the size of a soccer ball now.
Owls are incredible creatures. They're my favorite of the raptor birds. And also, from my old high school days, that's my team. My team totem.
Your team was the Owls?
The Bradford Owls. Ever tell you a story about that?
No.
Bradford Area High School, Bradford, Pennsylvania, was the first high school in the United States of America to play night games under a lighted field. And the team was called the Bradford Oilmen because it was a lot of petroleum going on in Pennsylvania back in those days. And it was the team name was the Bradford Oilmen. But when they lit up the field, the sports writers started calling them the Night Owls. And after,
how cool is that?
Yeah, and after one full season, they officially changed the name to the Bradford Owls. So the first high school in America to play night games. Wow. Everybody else played in the afternoon.
Wow. Well, we have that's a neat little
That's
thing.
an interesting story.
That is a neat little
Doesn't
thing.
make me a better person.
Speaking of night owls, former night owl Tom Brady of the New England Patriots is now former quarterback.
He's completely retired.
After all those
there was speculation,
after all those commercials in the Super Bowl about me, I'm coming back. I ain't going anywhere. It's like after 20 years, he's done.
Yeah, it made sense. He's allowed to stand down if he wants to.
Yeah.
Never liked him.
I never liked him either.
I always thought the commercial he did for the mattress was weird. It's like where he goes in the concierge at the hotel, takes him down the secret, alleyway, and opens up the secret door. And inside the room, there's just a mattress. There's not even any sheets on the mattresses, just the mattress. And he says, "Will there be anything else, Mr. Brady?" He says, "Oh no, I've got everything I need right here." It's like, what are you going to do with that mattress, dude?
Did he hold up a cupped hand?
Yeah. It's like,
Because he loves him some him.
exactly. It's like,
If I were Tom Brady, I'd love me some me too.
was there a
If you were Tom Brady,
Do you
you
think
would.
he wears the rings?
If you were Tom Brady, you
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
wear that hat.
If I were Brady, I'd be big pimping wearing those rings all the time. man.
like Saban in the Aflac commercials. So anyway, the coronavirus, we have a lot of restrictions. We have a lot of guidelines and things like that. First of all, Franz Borghardt, who is an attorney, which means he studies the Constitution of both the state and the federal Constitution, is going to weigh in. We are not trying to cause a problem for anybody. I want to stress that. We just want a little clarification. Now, this is from the mayor's press conference. I went to that yesterday over at MOSEP, and this is about some of these gatherings people are having. There were a couple reporters that were actually disturbed by people having gatherings at their homes, out in the yard. And
Block parties.
Yeah, block parties. Here's what they had to say.
This is what Mayor Broom had to say about people flouting the request to not gather in large groups.
There were several large gatherings that took place across the city this weekend, which were certainly contradictory to what I asked people to do. That's unfortunate, because when you do that, you put the whole community at risk. When you are having large gatherings of 250 or more, and that number is consistently changing, it means you make our city, your neighbors, your friends, your family, more vulnerable. And so when these large gatherings were brought to our attention, we immediately asked BRPD to look into it, and as it is my understanding, they proceeded to disperse the group. But I would like to encourage everyone who's listening to this. I believe the majority of the people in this city and in this parish want to be safe. I believe the majority of the people in the city and parish want to adhere to the guidelines so we can minimize the impact. So my communication to everyone is to hold your fellow citizens accountable. And if you see something like that going on, I would encourage you, or something like that emerging, I would encourage you to spend time sharing. Do not put us at risk.
And that's the mayor from yesterday's press conference.
Now, one of the things about what she had to say yesterday is she said, if we hear of large gatherings, we will ask BRPD to look into it. And she said very clearly at the beginning of this that it was a request, it was guidelines. There is no law prohibiting gatherings of people who want to gather on private property.
There is a law assuring us the right to gather on private property.
And there was a reporter that was very exercised about it, and he kept asking, what about enforcement? What about enforcement? And the mayor said, look, these gatherings are kind of dangerous according to CDC, but she never said they will come and arrest you. But Franz, what happens if, first of all, if, as she said, we hear about it, meaning the mayor's office, we'll send BRPD. Are we starting to walk on the other side of legality there a little bit?
So we have an immovable object and an unstoppable force about to collide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by that I mean we have a constitution that empowers the federal government under the Commerce Clause to do certain regulatory things during a national emergency, during a pandemic, during this, what's going on right now. And then we have public health law and police power that gives local government, and what we're really talking about is local government, state and local, the authority to regulate who can do what during this pandemic. So from a constitutional standpoint, to be candid, I'm not sure, which is maybe why she phrased it as a request. I'm not really sure if the police can disband people being at a house. They can set up curfews. They can say, we don't want you out at a certain amount of time.
Right.
Okay. They can say, we want you in your homes for a certain amount of time. We know that, right? We know that they can do in national emergencies and local emergencies, they can do that. But to Bill's question, can the police go to your house if you're having less than 10 people, less than however many people, and say you shall disband? I don't know if they can at this point. Now, it is different. The analysis becomes different if we're talking about quarantining someone known to be sick, okay, or what the law calls isolating individuals who are healthy versus unhealthy. But we're not using those terms yet, right? We're talking about requests. And I was, in fact, talking to my podcast partner, Richard Sprinkle, about this on the way over here.
The Legally Unfiltered podcast.
Yeah. What we're really getting at is this. The government does not want to arrest people at this point, or period, for not doing what it is requesting to do, because, candidly, if you got sick people, where are you going to put them?
Well, but here's the thing. I can remember when I worked in the hospital many years ago, and we still, used leeches and lit fires and had shaman jump over them. But
That was back in the good old days.
You would have somebody with a communicable disease, and I don't care if it was influenza or something, or an infection that you didn't know what it was. You'd put them in an isolation room.
Right.
The room was sealed. It had recirculating air that was separate from everything else. People went in, wear masks, gloves, and all that. This is a situation that's dangerous. That patient still had every right to say, give me the form to be released against medical advice, and you couldn't stop them from walking out with all of their germs. So I'm going to assume that individuals still have rights in this nation. And what worries me is there is a difference between guidance and suggestions and force of law. And, we're already losing millions of dollars in revenue from people that aren't working, from the casinos being closed, and are we going to lose millions of dollars in lawsuits if a police officer responds to a gathering on private property, which is not illegal, and somebody says, get the hell off of my property, and it escalates, and they end up putting somebody in cuffs and throwing them in the back of a car, or worse, and then the lawsuits come.
So from a practical standpoint, and I'm a big fan of whatever the law is, I'm more interested in the practicality of things.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, even those individuals quarantined have civil rights. They have due process, they have equal protection. The quarantining, the restriction of rights has to be reasonable. It has to be calculated. It cannot be arbitrary. It has to make sense. In this instance, we're kind of following what the CDC is saying. Now, back to your point, though. The courts are closed right now.
Mm-hmm.
City Court is closed. Baton Rouge City Court's closed until late April. 19th JDC is closed for the next 2 weeks, except for inmates being remotely given bond relief or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Federal court is very limited right now. So from a practical standpoint, yes, you have all these rights, but to exercise those rights. If you were a bar owner right now and you say, man, look, you're killing my business. I want to file an emergency injunction to stop you from doing this. The courts are closed.
So where is the due process?
So the issue is going to be, and I'm not, by the way, guys, I'm not saying that the governor acted wrongly for doing what he did. I'm not saying that the mayor is acting improperly.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all.
But the due process is going to come far after the damage is done.
Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. We have reporters that should know better at a televised and broadcast and rebroadcast press conference asking the mayor president
stupid questions
about enforcement when there is no law in place for her to enforce. And it puts her in a very bad position, and it also has these reporters inserting themselves into the story.
So the other thing is, we want our police, especially right now, we want our police to be vigilant on the crime that this may produce. The crime that this may produce is looting. It may present issues that when businesses are closed, they may be vulnerable to arson, to other things.
B&E?
Yeah, we want our police focused on that. We don't want to have our police, which, by the way, the police, no offense to any of our agencies, they cannot police the citizens door to door, nor should we want them policing the citizens. Oh my gosh, you have too many people at your house right now. We don't want them doing that.
Nor can they refuse a dispatch call. So if somebody gets all worried because they see their neighbor's got a bunch of relatives over, and they call the police and say, look, there's all these people, and the cops got to go. So you're diluting manpower because the cop has to go if he's dispatched.
So the bottom line is this. What is hard to balance is this. Social gathering of family members, because we're dealing with a lot of stuff right now. It is not unfathomable that family members may say, hey, look, we're having dinner together tonight. Or, hey, we're getting together to support each other. Stuff has gotten real and emotional, and people are doing the best they can to deal with all this stuff. Yep. So that's different in my mind than the, hey, I'm having a bar's going out of business party, come on over to my house. And by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. As a strong supporter of our local service industry folks, our bars, our restaurants, and you guys are supporters as well.
Absolutely.
I feel terrible for what's going on with them right now.
Which is why I'm going to interrupt your thought to mention once again, La Divina will do takeout. You can order it on the phone, 771-8488. 225-771-8488. If you want to come to the counter, you can put your order in. They've got some lovely patio tables where you can wait. If you don't want to come in at all, call it in, 771-8488, and they will bring it to your car. But a lot of businesses like this, and I mean, Lance and his wife Mary are very, very civically oriented. They get involved in things. They do. They do a lot of charitable stuff, So they need your support right now. If you would normally come by to have a latte or a gelato or lunch, phone it in, and they will take care of you. 771-8488.
And I said earlier, guys, my plan is when I depart, you wonderful folks, I'm going to grab some to-go order, head out, and I would encourage everybody to continue to support your restaurants. Sullivan's is a good example. They support the Go Roo Show. I'm going to be doing a takeout from them. They do delivery. Continue to help support. There's been talk about buying gift cards. Gift cards are a great thing to buy at this point. But guys, look, the bottom line is, in researching for our conversation today, these requests, these mandates, it relies on a social understanding, a community sense of the government is asking you to do things, and as a community, we're trying our best to accommodate that.
All right, let's get right down to some real advice. Let's just say you were going to have a family picnic this weekend, Saturday or Sunday. You were going to set up tables out in your backyard, maybe some tents. Well, let's keep it to your property first, okay? And somebody calls the cops, and they come and say you all need to disperse. How should you handle that?
I think. This is one of those where you may lose the battle but win the war. My advice is you're not required at this point to allow police into your house without a warrant. My advice is to be smart about whatever you're going to do or say. Above all, be respectful. But if your family and your friends are in your household and you're doing whatever you're doing, I just don't know at this point if they have the authority. And again, let me be clear. When I say you may lose the battle, win the war, the police may make arrests. They probably don't want to. They may make arrests, and at the back end of this, you may be fine. But Bill, I got to be candid with you. I just don't know at this point if I would tempt fate. I might, as a criminal defense attorney, and I know people might be disappointed in me saying this, I might disperse.
Well, and that is your personal decision.
Right.
But chances are, if you were going to disperse, you wouldn't have the gathering anyway.
Well, that is,
but
in fairness, that is true.
Let's just say somebody doesn't want to disperse.
Right.
Can the police make a legal arrest in your backyard for this right now?
So I think where we are right now, I don't know that it would be, quote unquote, a constitutionally lawful arrest, because there is no, candidly, I don't know that there's any mandates right now that disallow you from having your family your people over to your house, your private property. I just don't know that there's anything right now. Now that may day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, there may be a mandate. If that mandate happens, I question the constitutional soundness of it. But again, when I say, and look, I'm a pragmatist. You guys know that. I don't want you to lose the battle, which is to say you get arrested and go to jail, or they may issue you a summons because they don't want to haul you to jail. I don't want you to get arrested now and face a court system that is not functioning at 1,000%, even if we win the war later.
That's another question. You know, one of the other things we're entitled to is if we get arrested, is we are entitled to due process, and we're entitled to it very expeditiously.
So you're going to get an initial appearance, which is your bond's going to be set within 72 hours.
Right.
That's what the law requires. You're going to get that. You're going to get to be bonded out. Okay. You're going to get to take a trip possibly to East Baton Rouge Parish Prison, which I'm sorry is a petri dish of
disease.
Well, I don't want to say disease, but not wellness. No offense to Sid or anybody else.
Not
unwellness. So point being, I don't want my clients, I don't want citizens to lose the battle and win the war. I think this entire incident, when we get out of the weeds, we'll have conversations about what is and isn't constitutional.
My question is more, why aren't you and your fellow members of the bar yelling, hey, look, you don't have to close courts. You don't have to deny people their right to appear and have due process. You can do it safely, and we don't have to bring both the state, the federal, and the local justice system to a screeching, grinding halt.
Are you asking with regard to courts being closed right now?
Yeah.
Well, the issue is, one, not to speak for my entire bar, but the issue is, number one, the courts are still functioning with regard to arrestees. So individuals that are getting arrested, the courts are still city court, state court, federal. So the federal court, for example, we're now doing for what we would call an initial appearance, where the defendant goes before the magistrate. We're now doing that teleconference video. Okay, same state, the judge has them video conferencing from the parish prison. City, I would imagine the same thing has happened. They're doing what's called call out. So one of the reasons we're not up in arms is because the system is still working. But again, I just, guys, I don't think you're wrong in your assertion that it is not unlawful at this point to have a gathering at your house. If the police come and ask you to disperse, you probably are within your rights to say no. I just don't know that I would advise it at this point.
I'm going to ask you a question that causes you to ask you to speculate, okay? Because this is more or less a civil law question. What about businesses that will be driven out of business by this crisis and by the restrictions placed on doing business? What recourse will they have if they feel like this crisis and the governor's action drove me out of business?
So one of my colleagues, Jared Ambo, shout out to Jared, I love Jared, wrote, courts are not closed for emergency orders and issues. Well, okay, we can slightly agree to disagree on that because I don't know that the court is going to deem this an emergency. But let's say you file an injunction. Let's say a bar owner, let's say Pam, shout out to Pam from the bookstore, love Pam. She says, you know what, I don't think this is lawful. So I'm going to file a motion for a restraining order and an injunction to allow my bar to stay open until such time that I have a hearing. The court has the authority to issue a restraining order stopping the closure. And then they would set it for hearing to determine whether or not the government has the authority to shut her down temporarily or not. By the time that gets to a hearing, the hold may be lifted, not sure. And then candidly, look, from a PR standpoint, do you want to be the bar owner, a restaurant owner that does that? Because there will be look, you're the PR guy. There will be a public relations effect for you being the one that says that they'll spin it with you're the one that doesn't care about the community because you want.
Exactly. Yep. And there is a lot of that involved in this. And that's something that will be determined later if this thing goes on for a long time.
There's going to be lawsuits galore. I'm just curious as to how they may work out. Will any of them have a leg to stand on?
Before we close it off with Franz, one of the things that I am acutely aware of is that, public intimidation goes both ways.
Right.
I don't want our officers running into a possible public intimidation charge if they're going on somebody's property without legal authority to do it.
I would suspect that our law enforcement agencies have had long conversations about how to deal with the public. I think everybody's going to be very nice about it for now. Now, if the National Guard is called in, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, I know they're on standby, that may be a different can of worms. But I think the tone will be, guys, please disperse. I don't think it will be authoritarian at this point.
Franz Borghardt, attorney at law,
Thank
we
you, guys.
appreciate your being with us. We're going to take our little break here, as we always do. When we come back, Chief Administrative Officer Daryl Gissel, he has just actually left the first full day of operation of the drive-through coronavirus testing site, which is at the Baton Rouge General Mid-City campus. And he's going to tell us what is going on with that and what the future looks like in terms of the city parish dealing with coronavirus.
Yep.
Again, we are at La Divina. The dining room is closed, but if you'd like, if you want a takeout order, call 771-8488. They will bring it to your car if you want, or you can go and sit at the outside tables. But 771-8488. Let's support our friends here at La Divina. Don't just stop eating simply because of this closure of the dining room.
And we are going to take a brief pause, refill the coffee. We suggest you do the same. We'll be right back. The City Parish CAO Daryl Gissel joins us in just a moment. See you in a moment.